We're going to get started. So if somebody can let folks know out in the hallway that we're going to get things cooking here. You want to go out and mention? Is it okay if I start it out? Oh. I'm not. Don't know. Probably is. Maybe Nathan has. Did you want to? Well, we still have a few folks coming in. We're going to try to get started. My name is James Snyder. I'm the Chief of Capital Programs for MBTA, and I just want to welcome everybody here. I see the town manager is here with us. And with me tonight is Katie Cho. She's the Chief of Capital Programs, and Nathan Ray, who is the project manager for this project. He was here with me the last time we had a public meeting here at the high school, I think, right? And so it's nice to be back in Winchester. Thanks for having us, and I'm going to turn it over to Nathan.
Thanks, Jay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. Yeah, it's been a couple months since we last presented you the design updates for Winchester Center Station. We were at 60% at that point, and we're currently moving, we're at 100%, or final design stage, as we like to say. That being said, at this point, the MBTA does like to come back and present updates to the design from last time we met, and we want to be able to, can everybody hear me? Yes, okay. And just really let you know where we're at and solicit feedback. So I'm going to try to speak as little as possible, about 20 to 25 minutes. I'm going to share the microphone with Roy Peterson, our consultant, the project director from Jacobs Engineering. After that, we'll have questions and comments. I believe you all got numbers if you wanted to leave a comment or bring forward a question. We'd advertise the 8 o'clock close. Yeah, we have some flexibility on that, but we're going to try to move quickly through the questions. We have a hard stop at 8:30, so if everyone could just try to keep their comments as brief as possible, we'll try to answer them as best as possible as well. So a brief agenda. We're going to go through, a lot of people, I imagine, were here in November. There's some people that weren't. We're going to just take you through the current situation with the station, project goals and scopes, what we want to do, what do we want to build, and what's our aim for undertaking this construction project at Winchester Center. We're going to update you on the current design, along with the latest, the comments that were solicited at the last public meeting, a bit of passenger survey data, and we're going to talk about basically the what, the when, and the how of Winchester Center. You know, what are we going to build? When are we going to build it? And how are we going to build it? Just before I get started with that, I want to talk about the why. As many of you are aware, the existing conditions at Winchester are deteriorating. The current station was built in the mid-50s, along with the viaduct that was built at the same time by Boston and Maine. The grade separation project was a huge undertaking at that point, separating the rail grade from road traffic. So in the mid-50s, you have the station basically that you have today. There's been very little improvements, some patchwork repairs, and the station remains essentially untouched for the past 65 years. As you can see in these photos, we have undertaken some light repairs. The latest were done in December 2018. So the station is experiencing efflorescence of the concrete. Roofs are blistering and peeling of the canopies. The walls are stained. There's deterioration in general of the station. If you've been up on the platforms at all, or you can see it from the sidewalks, it's due for an upgrade. It's overdue, and so we are excited to coming back to Winchester to build a new station. Just before I leave this slide, I just want to update you on last November. I told you about the quarterly field observation reports that we are undertaking. These are not structural reports; they are observations only. This situation of the station remains more or less unchanged. However, if we do have to go through another winter, we do want to start construction in the fall, by the way. But if the station had to experience another winter with wear and tear of a New England winter, we would have to put more money, essentially more Band-Aids on top of Band-Aids. It's something that we obviously don't want to do anymore. And we want to get to building you a new station. So I want to talk about the what now. What are our goals in designing something? If you want to renovate your kitchen at home, you have an idea of what you want to do. So just briefly through this slide, I think a lot of you might have seen it last time. Safety is the number one goal in our design decision-making efforts. We're talking about lighting, emergency lighting, security cameras at the platforms, passenger assistance telephone, these sort of items that design features that make the station bring it up to code in terms of MBTA standards. Secondly, accessibility. Accessibility is the main driving force for the design of this station. If you are at Winchester Center now, you have to climb down to get to the platform from the coaches. And so what we want to do is have level boarding. So you just walk straight out onto the platforms and into the trains. So this renders the Winchester Center much more accessible for those with accessibility needs. Along with that, we have new pedestrian bridges, ramps that are up to code. The current ramps do not meet code. We are installing elevators, one on each side at the south end, at the Aberjona and Waterfield lots. Thirdly, sustainability. As I mentioned previously, the existing conditions, the concrete is spalling, rust everywhere, and we want to introduce some newer, 21st century construction techniques using what we call FRP, composite panels. These are more sustainable to harsher winter conditions and de-icing chemicals. Fourthly, resiliency. This speaks to flood events or climate events that we anticipate coming in the next decades. And we want to render the station as prepared for that as possible. Something that doesn't necessarily play into the public eye, but it's something that, as far as an operational requirement, is very important to us. Speaking about operations, we want to, the high-level boarding does play an impact on delivery, service delivery, performance. Our on-time performance is something that we're continually wanting to improve, and level boarding helps everyone get on and off the train faster. So that's a major component that plays into our decision-making with regards to design. I want to run you through now briefly the station, how it's laid out, so when we talk about these terms of where things are later on, you'll know. So going to the left is towards Boston, to the right towards Lowell. I'm just going to introduce you briefly on our design. This is pretty much more or less unchanged. There are some details that we'll talk about later. We generally talk about 3 sections of the project, or 3 areas. First of all, we talk about the head house, or the Aberjona Waterfield area. Secondly, we talk about the kind of the midway point. This is the Laraway Road and Thompson Street areas. And the north side, where we talk about the Quill Rotary, the Pedestrian Bridge, and Shore Road. And so in summary, in talking about what we're doing, we're building a commuter rail station. We're building platforms, canopies, stairs, ramps, elevators. The station is not staffed. There's no internal heated space for waiting. This is like many of our commuter rail stations. They are, like I say, unstaffed, and it's basically platforms and canopies. There are some sensitivities, especially with Winchester. It is on a viaduct. You are 25 feet up in the air. We are building in the middle of your town with very close neighbors. So there's some other factors that do play into decision making in regards to construction and design selection. And just at the outset, you'll hear me say the town, or we'll be speaking about our conversations with the town, and it came up in a comment last public meeting. When we talk about the town, the MBTA has been working closely with the town, with officials of the town, and particularly the town working group. The working group is a collection of concerned citizens that give us kind of high-level design direction and comments to our designs. So we have been, over the previous years and months more particularly, working closely with them, and they have been our eyes and ears for Winchester. We have tried to meet and work with them on delivering a project that it meets scope, schedule, and quality design efforts from the MBTA. So when we talk about the town, there is work going on between the MBTA and the working group. I want to talk a little bit about what we heard from you last public meeting, and we have been getting your emails also. Thank you. Before I get into the details of this slide, I want to just lay out for you, generally when the MBTA receives comments, they generally come from 3 different constituency groups. Number 1 is ridership, 2 are abutters, 3 we classify as concerned citizens. So generally all the comments that we receive come from one of these 3 perspectives. The first is ridership. We broke down the comments that we had at the last public meeting. About 30% of the comments were from a ridership perspective. Now, that doesn't mean that someone also doesn't live close to the station or is a neighbor to it or is also a concerned citizen, but the comment itself came from the perspective of a ridership, someone who takes our service. Secondly, abutters. About 20% of the comments came from people who are our direct neighbors on our property line. Obviously, we're talking about Thompson Street businesses, we're talking about Shore Road businesses, and we'll be getting into that more later in the presentation. Thirdly, we're talking about concerned citizens. About half the comments came from concerned citizens. So these are people who necessarily, by virtue of their comment, do not take our service, and also, they don't live us. They're not directly abutting our property, but they feel concerned enough to give comments, and as well they should. So I just want to briefly go over, we broke down the comments further into these categories that you see here, and I'll talk about each one and briefly update you. We've heard the comment and how we've addressed that. And I'll be handing it off to Roy Peterson, who will go into more of the detailed design of various points about the station design. Firstly, we're looking at station comfort. About 15% of the comments, we had about 80 comments at the last public meeting. 15% were in regards to station comfort. So this is obviously from our ridership. We heard loud and clear that our ridership was not happy with station comfort that we were offering at the 60% design level. So they were asking for more canopies and more wind protection. And we know that we live in New England, and we have this station that's on a viaduct, therefore it's exposed to wind. That being said, we have made improvements to and extended the shelter and station comfort in regards to canopies and wind protection, and I'll let Roy talk about that more. Secondly, Shore Road ramp and the pedestrian bridge. There's been a lot of concern over Shore Road, and we understand that. There's a lot of confusion. A lot of people had comments about Shore Road. Why are you building a ramp there? Why are you building a bridge there? I just want to say, over our course of years in dealing with the town, and that means the working group, we were made aware of a town master plan, and there was people who spoke about it at our last meeting, that we wanted and we're working with the town, as the MBTA often tries to do, working with the town to identify needs and requests that they have, and how we can incorporate those into our design. The Shore Road, access on Shore Road with this ramp was in keeping with, as we understand it, a town master plan to open up and accessibility and passive travel to the station from the north of Quill Rotary onto Shore Road. We have provided extra renderings to help you understand what this will look like. Roy will talk about it more, but we need a ramp on that side. And you may say, well, why do you have a ramp on behind Thompson Street right now? That ramp is not compliant. It's too steep. We have to make a new ramp. There are other difficulties with building behind Thompson Street. Those buildings are right on our property line. We would have to build fire protection, so we're talking about concrete wall all the way up to the top of those buildings, and perhaps even a little bit higher. Can it be done? Yes, it can be done. But our design to this point and in dealings with the town have taken us to the point where we're at now. There are some finalizing of details to be done on Shore Road, and those will be forthcoming. But we need to provide accessibility and redundancy of service. Redundancy, so we have an elevator at the south end and ramps in other places, so that will help provide redundant, accessible egress and entrance to the station. Moving along quickly, mitigation. This section talks about station closure, parking concerns. We understand as well as Shore Road that there are parking concerns with what's going on during construction. How am I going to be affected? Am I going to be able to park downtown? Our businesses are worried about their customers parking downtown. There were many comments about that. So, we're going to talk about more parking in a different slide later. Construction nuisances, well, I will talk about that later, but basically we heard a lot of people concerned about dust, noise, vibration, construction nuisance we call it. How are you going to mitigate those concerns? Design appearance, specifically stone. In the 50s, this beautiful viaduct was built. And how can you, sort of blend your design in or reuse the stone if possible? And, we heard that there was a number of concerns about that. We have, in conjunction with the working group, arrived at a scope that we feel can fit within our budget and schedule, and comfortable with the quality that we can provide in delivering this project. Lastly, lighting. People were concerned about lighting pollution. They didn't want to live next to a station you could see from outer space. So, we need to have accessibility concerns when it comes to lighting. We need to have a certain lighting level at the platform for those who have visual accessibility requirements. We have provided a photometric plan to the town, and we're carefully designed light fixtures that help reduce spillage. So we heard you on that. The last area of the chart speaks about miscellaneous concerns, and not that these are not as important, but these are kind of other areas and comments that we're design related, and we try to look at and see what we could reasonably do. These were design features such as what are you doing, what kind of mesh are you have on the guardrails at the platforms? What are you doing about safety? What are you doing about bike storage? Why aren't you building a parking garage? Solar panels, these sort of issues. Just about solar panels, we are working with the discussions with the town on any sort of future use of solar panels. We're not precluding their future installment at the station. Our ticket vending machines are solar paneled, but it's something that we have to, again, look at. And we talk about construction, there's three major design parameters, there's decision-making parameters that I just want to mention briefly as well. When you go to tackle a project, you have to consider three parameters, which are costs. Can we afford what we're doing? We have a budget that we need to work to, and we've been designing to that budget. And so we have to ask ourselves when we see each of these requests, can we afford it? Or what would we have to give up to be able to pay for this? Secondly, schedule. There are some schedule implications with every decision that has to be made. So, we have to be mindful of how long things would take to build if we did build them. You want us to build a parking garage, and at the same time, the town is concerned about parking, for example, being lost. And so these sort of issues all come into play. And thirdly, quality. We would love nothing better than to build you everything that you want. However, we have the responsibility of designing to a budget, designing to a schedule, and all of that plays into, thirdly, the quality and scope of what we're trying to do as a whole in this project. So that's, it's obvious to some, but I just want to let everyone know that, because some people may think, well, how come you can't do that? How come you can't do this? Please bear in mind, we do have a budget. We do have a schedule. And so all these things do come into account when we're making decisions and looking at your comments. So right now, I just want to turn it over to Roy, who will be taking us through some of the more finer design details.
Thank you, Nathan. We first want to begin by kind of going back to a couple of the issues that Nathan brought up. We heard loud and clear the concept of infilling walls with a form liner concrete panel was unacceptable, and we've gone back to review that. And tonight, combining with the fact that at the time we were here last, our budget estimate was still being refined and finished, and also responding to some of the desires and requests, we've come back to be able to show you where we're planning on using this precast, also where we've expanded the canopies. So from that standpoint, I'll first address where the precast is going and where we're reusing existing stone. One of the key elevations, obviously, is the face toward the Winchester Common. And with that, we are, when we remove the existing ramp in this area here, this back wall will be partially dismantled to be able to make that ramp go away. But we are planning to reinstall existing stone in that surface and cleaning that wall and that ramp wall back there to its condition, original appearance and condition. That means that this wall over here which also is being impacted by the removal ramp, will be rebuilt partially with existing stone to match and be cleaned to blend together. Where we are going to have to be using precast panels will be underneath the ramp in these sections here between the supports as it goes down this direction. We also will be cladding this stair enclosure support area here with precast panels. We are looking at a precast panel that is a colored aggregate, colored stone, colored concrete. The exact patterning of that, we're going to work with the building committee on, representatives from that committee to refine it. We're still internally looking at 2 or 3 different options before we present that to the T. Once we feel we have some options that we can stand behind, which I'll tell you is an internal challenge that we're going through, we want to then we'll work through that with the T committee, and when, from there go on with the building committee to show them what we're doing. But we are, like you, we would like this to be as attractive as we can make it and compatible with the existing stone. Further down, then it'll be showing in. Actually, I'll go to the next view. As you go to the head house, these areas here and here, behind underneath the glass, will also be precast. That's the area we're really trying to study right now to set up the vocabulary that will be carried on other spots to be compatible with the stone. We have removed the fritting on the glass. The glass in these areas here will remain and serve as a wind buffer for people that are on the platform and going up and down the stairs to keep snow off those stairs. Last time we were here, the canopy roof was in this zone only, and this zone here as well, and then resumed over in this zone here. We have, at hearing your request, have added the canopy roof on the inbound side from there to there, and from there to there, with 2 benefits of that. First, obviously, is keeping the elements off of you who are waiting to catch the train. The second is we no longer need to have light poles in those areas, which was a concern that the light spillage would be going onto the common. We now can have an indirect light worked into the canopy itself, so the canopy gives the light, and we haven't got a bunch of light shining brightly down onto the road below. So we've tried to respect that. Although you still are looking up 20 some odd feet, you'll see the underside of the canopies, and they'll be glowing, but it will not be the same as the light fixture itself shining down into the common. Let's see my notes. We continue to provide bike parking. There'll be a bike enclosed bike area back in this zone here, secured. You'll be accessing it through a card pass system, be lockable racks, those kind of things. And then there'll also be exterior bike parking back here under this ramp to accommodate more people who bike in. As you saw in Nathan's survey, you will see in an upcoming slide, about 50% of the ridership here either walks or ride the bicycle. So we are responding to that concern and continuing to expand that as much as we can. And that brings us to Shore Road. So first, I'm going to show you, and you may have seen them out in the hallway. At the last meeting, there was a lot of requests to say, well, what will it look like from the street level? So we did. We went back and we created renderings, and I'll show you those in just a minute. One from looking from Mount Vernon toward the Common and the church in the background. The other standing at the intersection of Thompson Street and Main, seeing what the angle will look like toward that particular ramp area. And I think you'll see, quite frankly, it's pretty well screened by the existing buildings. One of the things I want to point out to you is that Thompson Road currently, Shore Road currently, as you know, has angled parking along this extreme edge along here. And at its narrowest point, it's approximately 18 feet wide, with parking in front of the medical office spaces. We're responding to the fire department's request that no road be less than 20 feet wide. So that's our beginning definition of how wide this street will be. So it will actually be wider. It will feel narrower to you in the first 100 feet as you're going by the ramp, without question. It will feel narrower. But it is actually going to be wider than what's out there right now. What's giving it the width and feel right now is the fact that all those angled parking spaces give you a much bigger visual feel to this thing. The ramp, the bridge itself, coming down this direction is a truss. You'll again see in the elevations that are going to come up in just a second how the perception of that sloping truss is pretty minor, and you look at it in the overall distance it's coming down, as well as the truncated views that you have to see through it. That truss will also serve as the holder of the screening, which is what we call a missile barrier, to keep people from throwing things off the bridge to anybody who'd be driving below it. Come on. My forward is not working. One more. So this is standing at the corner of Thompson Street in Maine, looking toward Quill Rotary. The grayed out building, oop, go back one please, Nathan. We've ghosted in, nope, not two, one. There you go. We have ghosted in the existing building massing only because we wanted to keep the focus on the train station itself, and the visual effect there. This is probably the view at which you will see the truss the most. There's been questions about what's being built in Quill Rotary. This right here will be a new abutment. There will be two of these, one at this side and one on the other side of the tracks. The other four that we're seeing, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 of these currently out there right now. They're clad in granite, and our intent is to use the same granite to clad those so that all those supports will look similar and compatible. This is the view down Mount Vernon Street. Again, the buildings have been shadowed to give you a sense of seeing through them, so you would never kind of see the entire truss as you're seeing it here, and looking through toward the common. So there has also been discussion about this here access off of the platform, a stairwell. It comes out right at Quill Rotary. The buildings on Thompson Street, which this is intended to show you, will be almost immediately adjacent to that. We will be lighting that stairwell to make it very safe, but at the same time we're providing lighting behind Thompson Street to discourage vandalism and hanging out in that space behind there. That's just a part of the design solution. That's my Nathan.
So we've spoken to you about what we're doing. I just want to finish off by talking about how we're doing it, kind of a high-level how. And I want to talk about this passenger survey data that we have that was done system-wide and honing in on Winchester Center. When this survey was done, it asked, how did you get to the station? So I asked people, you know, those of you who commute to Winchester, how do you get there? 50% responded by, they said they either walk or bicycle. 32% drove alone. 12% were dropped off by personal vehicle, and the remainder were they either carpooled or some other mode of transportation, perhaps bus. There's a bus connection that we have there. And just so everyone knows, the latest passenger counts we have are about 500 on, 500 offs at Winchester. So, you know, there's 500 people going to North Station in the morning and about 500 coming back in the afternoon rush hour. So I didn't have this graphic, but I'll just mention it. The primary destination, not surprisingly, is North Station for over 95% of the survey respondents. And then we asked them, you know, what do you take other modes of transportation? You know, we said, you know, do you always take the MBTA service, or would you take another mode of transportation to get to North Station? Half of them said they would not. They would, they do not currently take another mode of transportation. Half said they are staying with the commuter rail system at Winchester. Half said that they do or would take another form of transportation, an alternate transportation option, and we see that here in the right-hand side of the screen. So there was more than one option we gave them, so some selected more than one. So, you know, 45% would say, well, I would take another MBTA service, bus route 134, for example, that goes to the Orange Line. Or they would carpool, 26%, 36%, well, you know, if I don't take the commuter rail, I drive alone. And then the rest would either bicycle. So continuing with the how, you know, just talking about construction, we looked at the latest estimate, 90% said we were looking at about a 28-month construction schedule at Winchester if we close the station. If we close the station, that means trains still pass through, but it doesn't stop there. Patrons would not be able to board and alight at Winchester Center. We looked at, so that's a schedule savings of about 8 months as opposed to if we left the station open. And when you leave it open, you have to stage the construction, and it becomes longer to build the station. So there's about an 8-month savings there. Additionally, there's a cost savings of about $1 million. Thirdly, we looked at proximity to other higher order transit. I mentioned our bus route that connects to the Orange Line at Wellington Station. In addition, there's a very unique situation in our system with two stations being so close on our commuter rail. Wedgmere, of course, is close, about 0.7 miles away, and so we consider that quite a reasonable alternative in terms of walking, bicycling, getting dropped off at Wedgmere. Additionally, Wedgmere provides additional opportunities for station closure just because it's so close, but there are parking alternatives also that we're exploring. I know that I'm going to talk about parking in a minute, but we want people to be able to have options in terms of station closure. So just in summary, you know, closing the station is faster, it's cheaper, there's proximity to higher order transit that is readily nearby, and that coupled with the prospect of ever deteriorating station as it is now, we have decided that this station will be closed during construction. So we will be asking our commuters to make alternative plans for the period of construction. So moving quickly here, parking impacts. I've spoke to some people out in the hallway. people are very concerned about parking. I think that by closing the station, we've reduced the schedule by 8 months, and so hopefully that's good news in terms of those who rely on parking for businesses and personal use downtown. There's two issues when we talk about parking impacts. We have to understand where those impacts are and for how long. Not all the parking spaces will be closed for the whole 28 months of construction. Many will be, but many will be staged for a matter of weeks or months. So I'll just take you through briefly here on the south side of the station at the Aberjona Waterfield Inn. So we have we've broken this down into temporary losses. We have to set up and build from Aberjona and Waterfield lots. Those will be for the duration of construction. And after that, there will be some permanent losses to spaces because we'll be building into the property where those spaces are currently. Another area at the south end, the Waterfield Bridge area, we need to do some work there. That will not be for the duration of construction. That will, I'm going to say, be for a period of months, for example. On Laraway Road, I believe most people know that that will be closed for the duration of construction, or definitely a vast majority of the duration of construction. Laraway Road, as I said previously, the site constraints are very difficult at Winchester Center. Thompson Street is very narrow. To build and to demolish things behind there will be very delicate, and we need that space on Laraway Road for laydown, for cranes, to build, to reach to the other side of the tracks from Laraway. Lastly, Shore Road, there are some permanent losses of spaces. Temporarily, there will be some losses as well. Shore Road we will not be closing off Shore Road for the duration of construction. Will there be a period of weeks and months where there will be some rolling stopping of access to Shore Road? Yes, there will. I can't tell you right now for how long that will be, or how long during the day that will be, but we need to get in there and build what we need to build and get out of there. It will not be for 28 months. It is our goal to try to keep that accessible as much as possible. We're going to work with the traffic. We have a traffic management plan we're putting together, which we're in discussions with the town about. And we realize there are sensitivities with parking and closures and temporary closures in your town. And we're trying to mitigate those. And station closure goes a long way in helping us get those losses down. Just want to talk about the schedule now. So we were at the 15% design phase in December 2015. This was approved by the town. 30% was also approved by the town in October 2016. 60% design was last November, and we're at final design right now in March 2020. We anticipate procuring a contractor coming up this spring with award in the summer, and notice to proceed, we call it, or the contractor can start his work in the fall of this year. So I want to talk a little bit about our abutters. You know, we're your neighbors. We've lived next to you for 65 years, and we want to tell you how we're going to help to mitigate construction nuisances during construction. You know, when we build something so close to neighbors like we have on Thompson Street, we do have our contractor it's mandatory for him to do. It's not mandatory for you to have at your business or dwelling precondition assessments. So these help determine what the state of your building was prior to construction. So before the contractor even goes and digs a hole or swings a hammer, he has to do these precondition assessments. So those will be done on the buildings, outside, inside, if the businesses or so allow it. And this will help, mitigate any sort of future concerns in regards to construction impact. Mitigation of construction nuisances, we have in our contracts dust control plans, rodent control plans. And these are updated all the time by our field personnel on site. So the MBTA, when we have a construction site, we employ T employees. We have resident engineers and we have field inspectors. So on a project the size of this, we would have one resident engineer and we would have 2 field inspectors. Field inspectors, part of their job is to make sure the contractor is doing what he's been paid to do, and that involves dust and rodent control. Communication measures during construction. We will provide construction advisories and updates via website if you signed up for that, our email blasts. These will obviously be shared with the town and approved by them ahead of time. We will have a hotline number directly connected to the contractor and to our field personnel on site at Winchester Center. And as always, there's the project email address. So, you know, I wish we could stand up here and say that you're not gonna have any dust, you're not gonna have any noise, you're not gonna have any sort of impact when it comes to construction. There will be. We are trying to mitigate that. We heard you last time. You're very concerned about that. We're concerned too. We want to be good neighbors, and throughout construction and in reducing the construction period as much as possible, we hope that we can try to help that process be as least painful as possible. So with that, I'm done talking. I don't know if anyone wants to give some closing. Yeah, Jay's going to give some closing remarks.
Thanks again. Nate's going to take a bunch of questions or listen to some of the comments that you have tonight. A couple of things. Just wanted to mention that we got a letter forwarded us today from the Chamber of Commerce that went to the town, and we're going to be working with the town to address the issues that were identified in that letter. Nathan will be, he's got a copy of it already, and so we'll be back in touch with Lisa and work through some of those issues that were identified from the Chamber of Commerce. Again, we received that today. I think it went to some of the legislators. So we hear that'll be part of the record for tonight's meeting as well. A couple of other things. Nathan mentioned that it's a 28-month construction schedule for closing. We're going to try to tighten that up a little bit as well. Hopefully we can reduce it a few more months, but that'll come as part of wrapping this thing up and getting it out to bid. So we're going to try to keep that to an absolute minimum. We've done a little bit better on some of the other stations that we've done recently, and we're going to be looking very closely at the timeline and trying to keep that to the fewest number of months as we can possible, somewhat less than 28. With that, I'll pass it back to, or we can have open comments and we can just try to address things as we can, or take down some notes that you have to offer for us tonight. Thanks again for coming, and we appreciate your patience. Lisa, did you want to?
So thank you to the MBTA for holding this public meeting. Frankly, we wish we had more of these. These are an incredibly valuable tool for us to get this important information out to the public and to get much needed feedback. I think we find that when we get feedback too late, there are problems that could have been easily solved that become much more difficult. That being said, we also feel your pain happening tonight at the same time down the street from here at Town Hall. Your very own town capital planning committee is meeting as well and sort of going over all the town needs and trying to address that with limited funds. So we sort of understand that this is a process where we have a lot that we want and a limited amount of funds. I also want to thank our delegation for really pushing this project forward. This has been a decade in the making. More recently, because there's been a funding source, there's been a flurry where these conversations that have taken years are suddenly compressed into months and sometimes even weeks, and that kind of makes communication very difficult. But I can assure you that your delegation with Senator Jason Lewis, who's here, as well as Senator Jalen and Rep. Mike Day, they have been in pretty much constant communication with my office. They've also been attending meetings with me in Boston and in Winchester, fighting for the things that we want to fight for. That being said, I want to sort of give you an update from the town's perspective on where we are, because we've been fighting and wanting and hoping. In some areas we're successful and some we're not so successful, and I think it's in full transparency that we want to share with you where we are. Most recently, the biggest challenge for this project has been the funding, which is the project came in about 15% higher than the budget. So that was their cost estimate. So there was a few weeks in which we were sort of kept in the dark while the T was working on exactly what that would mean and what the implications would be. And these are conversations that we've had with them just in the last few weeks. So we, the town, are still open to some conversations and hoping that we'll see some changes or some things we want moving forward. And one of the reasons why we're here tonight is to continue to hear from you. So the ongoing uncertainty over the design, the plans, a lot of that, again, due to the over cost estimate, and also there's a huge team at the MBTA working on this. You see their project manager and their engineer, but they have what seems to be dozens and dozens of other people that you work with that you have to get answers from, and sometimes that communication can slow down. We're working on a lot of things with the MBTA that you don't necessarily see, but they're behind the scenes. So, for example, we've been meeting with their lawyers to go over a lot of legal issues that are associated with a massive construction project like this, going over easements that we need for passage at Springtown meeting, and other ownership and other issues that need to be worked out. Obviously, we've been trying to work through funding issues as well, a major component of this project. Maintenance issues, we're continuing to think about not just designing, constructing, but also what happens afterwards and making sure that this project is maintained. And then right now the MBTA is going through our own Conservation Commission. They have a notice of intent. There are some conversations about needing to provide compensatory storage. So you'll see that there's on their parking plan, they're looking for 129 spaces. The last plan we looked at was 123. So the difference in 6 is a recent change, and my understanding is that they need those spaces in order to construct, so on a temporary basis to construct the compensatory storage they need, but then that storage itself won't take up any additional parking spaces. So sometimes stuff like that happens where all of these conversations are happening, legal, conservation, so on, and then we're getting new information that we might not have known. But as soon as we get this information, we do try to share it with the public, and we do try to figure out how to mitigate those impacts. So just sort of to go through the list of things that the town has been discussing and where we're at, one of the biggest issues that we heard from you that we've been trying to push is to move the Shore Road ramp back to Thompson Street, which is something that we heard. You'll see with the design plans that were presented tonight that we were not successful in doing that, and the Shore Road ramp remains. I'm not going to pretend to be the one to explain exactly what the issues are, but we've been told it's everything from the engineering, time, space, ownership. There's a whole slew of issues, which is the reason why that ramp continues to be on Shore Road. There was a mention about the granite and stone cladding of various areas. Obviously, the town would like to see as much reuse of the stone, the historic stone veneer. Obviously, we would like to see granite versus concrete. Those are still being worked out. There are still some cost issues. We don't have the 100% design plan, so not everything's on the 90% design plans. So our town engineer, our staff is still working hard to literally look at each component of the project to make sure that it's designed in the way that we want to, and of course then negotiating with a T in terms of what the cost impact would be. Obviously, again, we would like to see as much stone, granite, historic design elements as possible, and of course we want those included in the project budget. Other things that we're dealing with, pushing for more canopies. You'll see that the T was able to accommodate more canopies. There's also been discussions about solar panels. We've heard from many of you that you would like to see solar panels integrated into this project. My understanding is that T is not integrating solar panels into the project, but there, in a letter that we received yesterday, there seems to be some opening for a conversation about accommodating future solar panels that might involve some, unfortunately, it might involve some money and some time in terms of potential design to accommodate that, because my understanding is that the way that it's been designed now is not necessarily looking at the weight of the panels, the snow meltage, things like that that really haven't been explored in detail, but again, we'll continue to see if we can at least continue those conversations so that as this project moves forward at a much quicker pace than a solar panel conversation, we can still integrate that into a future project. Parking, again, unfortunately, 129 spaces is a significant amount of spaces. And again, our understanding is that some will only be used for a matter of weeks and months. We would like as much notice as possible in terms of the construction timing so that we know exactly when those months might be. I think for some businesses, you definitely want to know if those weeks or months coincide with your busy season. Is it during the holidays? Is it during the summer? Can you accommodate? As much as possible, we can know that. And my understanding is that the T is looking at putting in some sort of construction timing requirements in their bid documents, but then ultimately the developer can change those with notice. So we'll have some certainty, but then again, we'll be primarily working with the contractor if they're on board about exactly what the timing would be. And of course, if any of that changes, we want as much notice as possible again. So again, we can coordinate with businesses and residents and whoever's being affected by those spaces. So we also have made note that we don't want to see workers that are working on the project in these spaces that could be used for town use. So we want to continue to work with them on making sure that there are spaces off-site for that. We are also looking for mitigation for the parking lost. So some of these things might happen externally, some will happen internally. By externally, I mean we are trying to have conversations with DCR, which is another state entity, to see if there can be some more spaces freed up along Mystic Valley Parkway or the Shannon Beach parking lot that can then accommodate additional commuters, which means that those commuters won't be parking in the downtown spaces that are lost, and potentially then we can convert some of the commuter spaces that are not being used into maybe in-town or business spaces to, again, accommodate for that loss. So we're working on those kinds of nuances, looking at space by space. Those were embedded in some of the recommendations that the Chamber sent us. Some we're not so sure of. Some we'll consider. Again, we're still working on that response. We also noted that since many walk and bike, we want to continue to hear from them. Is it still bikeable to Wedgmere? Is there a way that we can increase drop-off areas so that we can accommodate those who are dropped off, again, to minimize any need for parking? We also are emphasizing that we need a contact person, a hotline, a person, an email, and somebody who's responsive during construction. Again, dust, noise, those can have a very negative and also very individual impact on a business. So a business might want to open their windows, or a business might need to have quiet for some particular reason. So we want to make sure that there's somebody who's immediately responsible for listening to some of the issues that we have. And there's still some ongoing issues that we're dealing with that haven't yet been addressed that might be unfortunately, they need to be addressed by the contractor, so we don't have definitive information. So one of those things that I think many of you can understand is Pigeon Control. So we still don't have built into the design definitive questions about how to deal with Pigeon Control. And that might seem silly, but it's important. Pigeon poop is not very good material to work with and can become an issue. Also, the town is looking for the MBTA to coordinate with us on other projects. As you know, we have 2 bridge projects. We have a handful of traffic improvement and pedestrian improvement projects, so we need to continue to work on those so that we can coordinate traffic. We can make sure that we have enough details. We have enough time to notify people that are impacted. We're working with a T on a warrant for Springtown meeting. The warrant closes the end of next week, so we need to work on a warrant article where the T will still need to come to Springtown meeting to ask for some easement changes. The T will also have to come to the select board and get some grant of location, so the select board will have some say in terms of construction hours and basically some of the rules and regulations that they'll have to follow. So there'll be some opportunity there for input from all of you on what we can do there. Let's see. Landscaping was significantly cut back as part of this project. So we're going to work with a delegation and look at other sources to get funding for landscaping. And no offense to the T, but Mass DOT is not known for their stellar landscaping, so this is not necessarily a bad thing. So if we can sort of have some control, get some funding, work on making sure that this project is beautiful at the end of the day, that will be something that we can work on together. We also are in support of looking at ways to make this project quicker than 28 months. So if it can be 24, 20, we all know that those weeks, those months, especially if they fall around a very busy season, any of those things will be helpful. So we'll continue to work on the T to reduce the time. One thing that hasn't been addressed is the bus stop. There is a bus stop on Laraway Road that is no longer going to be there. We are not sure if or where that's going to be relocated. So again, we need to hear from you. We still need to hear from the T as to what is going to happen in terms of those who are taking the bus and what the alternatives would be. Lastly, we still want to take comments from you. The town does. We have heard that the shuttle is too expensive, so there likely won't be a shuttle that's running between Winchester Center and Wedgmere. My understanding is that cost is $4.7 million to run 2 shuttles during the weekday and a shuttle during the weekend. That cost is outrageous, but we still need mitigation if there isn't going to be a shuttle. So whether it's things like making sure there's additional lighting along Ginn Field so that those who are walking, instead of taking a shuttle, and the quickest route is a lighted route, especially at night and evenings and so on. So those are the kinds of things that we're still talking about. So as we're getting information about things that are not happening, we are still continuing to push for things that were important, and we're still trying to find ways to mitigate a lot of the issues that will impact all of you. So that's just a little bit of my laundry list. There's a lot more that we are talking with the T in detail with, but again, I want to make sure that we hear from you. I'll be taking a lot of notes, but again, if you know that people aren't here and they have some thoughts or impacted, please send them to the MBT email. Please send them to us as well, the town manager's office. We want to make sure we hear from everyone. Thank you.
How's it going? My name is Ryan McGeown-Conron. For those who don't know me, I am Representative Michael Day's Legislative Director. Right now, he apologizes. He is at the State House in session working on some transportation bills, and a couple of points he wanted me to just quickly point out in that of what he's fighting for. We actually put in a couple amendments for the station. One amendment is for, in the bond bill, one amendment is for the, after the center is done for trees and landscaping. So we're hoping to get that passed. And also, we put in another amendment for the bond bill to get some money for the shuttle. So hopefully those amendments pass through, and hopefully we can get the bond money to work in a possibility of a shuttle through Winchester and Center and Wedgmere, and hopefully we get the money for the landscaping. And once again, we're working with the town manager, and we're working with the MBTA and Senator Lewis's office, and we just appreciate everybody's comments. And once again, sorry that Rep Day isn't here, but that's why he sent me. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I believe when you came in, you were given numbers. We're going to follow with those numbers for following the order of questions. We have 2 microphones set up, and we are ready. Just to reiterate again, we do have a hard stop at 8:30, so we'll try really quick. If we could keep the comments as short and brief as possible, that would be well appreciated. Yes, go ahead. Hi.
Streets on that very, very busy and quite frankly dangerous in terms of an ADA compliance rotary. Now, I spoke with the engineer earlier and he said this is not the MBTA's problem. They're only concerned with their curb ramping and their sidewalk at the bottom of that shore road ramp. But the sidewalk from Mount Vernon Street, do you know where Mount Vernon Street, the street that's coming at an angle up from the bottom here? Do you know? Yeah, there you go. So from the corner of Mount Vernon going towards Shore Road, that is not ADA compliant. The width of that sidewalk, for people who live here next to the old Nelsons and, you know, where the going towards Shore Road, that's a very, very narrow sidewalk. And the curb ramps are not ADA compliant in terms of what you really need in terms of a landing at the top of a ramp.
Yep.
So you're putting in a beautiful new ADA compliant ramp coming down Shore Road, and the curb ramp and the sidewalk at the bottom of that is going to be lovely and compliant and, oh God, I just broke the thing.
We understand what you're saying, yes.
Anyway,
Yeah.
but what I'm saying is you're telling me MBTA isn't responsible. You've got a nice curb ramp and a sidewalk on one side of Shore Road, but when you cross the street, you can't get up properly. So I would like the town to work with the MBTA and figure out how to make this work, because your functionality for people coming off that ramp, in particular people who have ADA issues, to get back towards town is really, really quite frankly dangerous. It's not a safe area in terms of having a walker or a wheelchair or whatever.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is not
Thank you.
gonna say.
So in briefly, there were comments about covering the bridge with the working group. It was decided that we would not cover the bridge. I understand that. You get to that certain point and then it's not covered. You go off the ramp, it's covered. You get to the bridge, it's not covered. But then you're onto the platform, it's also not covered in most areas. Some areas it is. So you either cover the whole thing or you don't cover it, and then people look at it and like, why'd you cover this bridge? It looks, aesthetics comes into play. So Mount Vernon, we have to. That we have heard that from the town, yes. Mount Vernon, we have to control the scope. Do we do this curb? Do we do that curb? Do we keep going? How far do we go? We have to draw our boundaries somewhere on construction. We would love to fix all the problems, we just can't, given the constraints that we have. Shore Road, thank you for your comments about keeping it open during construction with pedestrians. Okay, number 2, can we get 1 to 5 perhaps up at the microphones? And that way, maybe odd numbers here and even numbers over here. Number 2.
Well, I'm short. There. See, this is a field power. So, my name is Sally Dale, and I've lived in Winchester for 28 years. My name is Sally Dale, and I've lived in Winchester for 28 years. I'm a town meeting member. And I got on town meeting last spring, and learned that we would be running full tilt into the final designs for this station after 10 years of process. And I understand the reason that it went very slowly and then very fast has to do with funding cycles. And we're very grateful to our delegation for getting the money to repair this station, because I hear loud and clear what you said, that it would fall apart if it went for one more winter. And I totally agree with you about that. I think the process that the design has gone through so far has been really, really hard on this town in terms of our feeling like you have listened to our concerns about, I mean, I'm not even talking about the impact on the merchant community, which is potentially catastrophic. What I'm really talking about here right now is the design. Winchester is a registered historic place, and the Massachusetts Historic Commission decided that this station is a non-impacting, or the renovations to this station, if I read the report right, are not going to impact the historic look and feel of our town. I disagree, and I think that I'm very happy to hear from Town Manager Lisa Wong that there are still some design decisions that are pending, because those are really, really important decisions for what everyone says is a once-in-50-year project. So if these remaining design decisions that are on the table, if the T would please listen, this is a public hearing, and some of the public hearings that you referenced never happened, the 30%, for instance. This is not an opportunity for us to listen to you, it's an opportunity for you to listen to the town. And in this final design phase, please preserve and listen to our requests for preservation for the look and feel of our historic-looking village. So that's one. The Rotary, the plantings. People in town don't even realize what is underneath that incredible stand of mature specimen trees in Quill Rotary. And I understand the plan is to absolutely take down every single living thing in the Rotary, strip it to the ground so that they're not in the way. Well, first of all, if they're not in the way at all, don't take them down. Second of all, if they're marginally in the way, there are very good high-level best practice tree protection practices out there that the T should be employing. This is a major contributing factor to the look and feel of our village.
We understand that. So stone veneer plantings, would you mind just...
Stone veneer is huge, okay.
Yep. 3.
I'll say, third, I want to say that I think it's really unfortunate that the T has not listened to the Shore Road community about getting rid of the Shore Road ramp. The fact is, Shore Road is one of the emerging micro neighborhoods of our village, and to block it off with this massive structure, again, we're in the last 10%. Please listen to what people have to say.
Right.
And then I think that
Please wrap up your comments.
One moment, I'm just reviewing my notes. Oh, the last thing I want to say is that I do feel for our merchants, right? This is going to be, as I said, potentially catastrophic for our downtown village. I'm glad, in a way, that you're going to shorten the construction cycle. I'm glad that your Director of Capital Planning is committed to doing everything he can to make it move quickly. I don't know what the Chamber of Commerce letter said, but if we didn't have the down ramp, we would be encouraging pedestrians to walk right by the front doors of merchants when the construction is over. And the down ramp on Shore Road is allowing all North Main Street commuters to just miss the merchants.
Thank you very much. Number three, and just what, number 3 and 4 and 5,
I want to correct something you said, which is we're not taking all the vegetation out of the Quill Rotary. it's being, and there is tree protection being provided. I'm not sure where you're getting information from.
Stone veneer, we did reach sorry, sir. We did reach an agreement with the working group along Laraway Road. Was the primary elevation that we wanted to reuse and salvage stone. Shore Road ramp. Again, this was in keeping with our understanding of what the town master plan was. This has been going back for a number of years. Merchants, we hear you loud and clear. We want to reduce your pain as much as possible. I talked about mitigation. Generally, we have to talk about schedule, cost, and quality when talking about adding scope to this project. Number 3, thank you.
Hi, my name is Dennis Dale, landscape architect. Work here in Winchester, resident for 25 years. I've looked at these drawings. I've reviewed the 90% set. At 90%, the engineering ramp drawings for the bridge did not coordinate with the architecture, nor did the lighting coordinate with the architecture or of the bridge itself. The 90% set, I believe, is being used to do the cost estimates. The landscape plans that were provided. I'd done some research, actually talked to some people who were working on the project, said that they hadn't even started the project yet, and what they had in their drawings was just a placeholder, which made me really nervous because the 90% set is being used for cost estimating. I just discovered today the new landscape plan. You are planning to save some of the trees in the Quill Rotary. The one thing that I find really upsetting is that your drawings, all your perspective drawings, are stretched and out of perspective. The image of looking at the Quill Rotary from the front of Starbucks doesn't give the clear understanding. You should have the surrounding buildings there so you can understand exactly what is going in, not focusing on it. Everything's kind of washed out with those weird buildings. Get the right lights, get the street number of lanes correct. There's some really basic things. I don't know whether this is going out to China or someplace else who's doing your perspectives, but there's just too many errors with it, and it's not helping with the actual discussion. I would say that from a historical point of view, I talked to the Historical Commission on Monday. I was in that hearing and presented an alternate view of your tower, which is all glass, which is very expensive. You could look at making that tower, the elevator towers, into something that fits more with the character of Winchester. It would save money. It would also save birds. And also the hanging sneeze guards that hang down from the walkways, which are supposedly deflecting wind because you have a building behind it and the staircase behind it. This does not seem to be useful. The giant downspouts that should be incorporated into the columns behind it. Everything about your details, reading your specs in terms of your conduit is being managed by the contractor on site, and it should be designed into the project and not put on afterwards, which is like most MBTA projects. I know that
We have to
I
wrap
could
up
go
in 10
I could go on
minutes.
for a while and really should go on to midnight to cover all this stuff. But this is a 90% set was just abysmal, and I could not believe that you guys are getting away and getting paid for doing a 90% set when the engineering and the architecture did not match, and when there were so many errors that I had 3 pages that I would have sent over. So I'm just really upset by this whole thing, is trying to rush it, and just the poor level of detail and understanding of what the town is all about. So I could go on, but I won't. Thank you.
Thank you. So, does anybody have how many numbers did we hand out? 40, 30, 15? Oh, okay, so we're at 3, now number 4, and can we have 4 over here?
Yes.
And then can we have 5 all ready to go? 5? Please keep it to like 20 seconds. I'm sorry, but that's just where we're at.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I mean,
Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, can you all stop so I can use my 20 seconds? Well, my name is Paula Tognorelli. I'm the director of the Griffin Museum. I am going to take this opportunity to give a little lesson to the town people about the history of the Griffin Museum. I know our parking spots are a contention for the town. Everybody wonders why we have them. In 1992, or earlier, because the preparations were started in 1990, in order to build on that land, Arthur Griffin had to agree to actually pay $100,000 to build the parking spots that go from the Griffin to Skillings Road. And in addition to that, we also have to maintain the property from our building up to the Skillings, which we pay through in landscaping costs. So
Do you have a comment about the design? I understand we spoke earlier, you're concerned about the parking mitigation. Do you have something you just would like to tell?
I would just like to say the first bone of contention I have is that the quick answer for everybody is to take away our spots. We've been sued for our spots. There are spots. We have a 99-year lease for those spots and the museum itself. So I have empathy for the business people. I understand you're going to have difficulty with your business, and so will we. We'll go out of business. That's all I have to say. I just wanted to share history and information.
At that end of Shore Road, the parking will be very limited in duration to build the compensatory storage and the shoring wall that we need to build there. Number 5.
You know what, I was here before this stadium, it was fall, and I was sitting in here.
Number 6 can get ready over here if you don't mind.
A number.
Oh.
But I was here earlier before everybody started getting their numbers handed out.
Yes.
But I just want to say something about the parking. I'm
Your
very
name, please.
disappointed. My name is Heidi DeLeo.
Thank you.
I'm a town meeting member, Precinct 5. I own a business. I have a student in school. I'm active in the town. I'm a shopper. So it affects me all different ways. I am very disappointed to see that the MBTA hasn't come up with some alternative, more out-of-the-box ways of addressing the parking, whether it's contributing funding to help us find other solutions. We already don't have enough parking. It's already an issue. So to take anything away is devastating for everybody, towns, shoppers, etc. So I would love to see the T work a little bit harder on trying to figure out a way to partner with the town other than suggesting the alternatives of what we already have in place.
Right. Thank you. We're talking with Lisa. Your town is very dedicated in helping us resolve that issue. Number 6 or number 5?
Number 5.
Yep.
I'm Don Burgess. I live in the town. I've taken the commuter rail for like the last 10 years. I'm concerned about the level of congestion around Wedgmere Station and just request that the T perhaps have their consultant or some consultant that's familiar with traffic flow take a look at the congestion around Wedgmere Station and see how many spaces are there now and how many are being displaced from Winchester Center, and see, specifically where commuters that are presently using Winchester Center, where they will go once this, station is closed and they need to go over to the other station. And like I said, it's very congested there right now. I don't know if you can get somebody to take a look at it during the morning rush hour, take some traffic counts, do some evaluation of how heavy the traffic is, and hopefully come up with some mitigation for it.
Thank you. Yes, I got your emails, and I think, you were concerned about the platform width at Wedgmere. We are trying to mitigate parking issues at Shannon Beach. I have no real significant news for you, unfortunately, right now. But, you're concerned about congestion at Wedgmere. So we're on to number 6.
That's me.
Thank you.
Hi.
We have number... And you're concerned about parking. Thank you. Can we have number 7 ready to go over here? Yes, sir.
My name is Rich Mucci. I'm a board director for the Chamber of Commerce. I'm a business owner. I'm the author of the Chamber of Commerce letter you're talking about tonight that 73 businesses as of this morning have signed on to.
Yes.
I speak on behalf of these businesses. We have grave concerns about this project and the impact on our businesses. And it's one thing to stand up here and say you understand the merchants, you hear us loud and clear, but it's another thing to hear us loud and clear. This project will put many of us on the cusp of going out of business. This is a small community. We have external factors that we compete against every day in this town, including a parking crisis, as you've heard about tonight, and this project will only add to that. So I do have a couple of questions for you tonight. We've presented a mitigation plan to the town that, Lisa, I hope you consider with an open mind all our suggestions and don't just summarily dismiss them, and that you work with us to devise a great plan that spreads the burden amongst all of us. My question for you, sir, is what is the plan for the contractors to park for this project?
Do you want me to answer now, or do you have other questions so I can answer?
You can answer that one, and then I'll ask my next question.
Sure. We own what we call the Woburn Loop behind Stop and Shop. We have options for parking for them there. That's where we're looking at right now. That's our property. It's close enough to the station site. The contractor can use his own people to drop people off from that site back to, for example, Aberjona or something like that. But we're putting that in the contract. We heard the town loud and clear that we need to get these people not parking there all day during construction, then going home at night and taking up spots for merchants. That's our plan right now.
So can you commit today to not having your contractors park in our spaces?
We can put that into our contract documents, yes. We've already talked to the town about that. Yes, sir.
Great. My second question, in terms of noise and dust, is there a plan in your dust control plan to encapsulate this dust and noise during construction?
We have a dust control specification, encapsulate the dust. I know generally it involves watering whatever's going on. If there's drilling, if there's scarifying of pavement or concrete or demolition, generally that involves keeping it wet. That's the large part of what we do for dust control. We have mud mats so we're not tracking dirt and mud all over the rest of the city when the trucks leave the construction site. Those sort of issues are involved with our dust mitigation specs.
And my final question for you tonight, inevitably during this time of construction, businesses will suffer, as I mentioned, financially, especially being in the middle of this project. There are literally businesses underneath where you'll be working. Will there be a fund created to compensate these businesses for lost revenue? I understand in the past that has happened in certain projects.
Is that right?
Will that happen with this project?
I can't commit to that right now. I don't have any knowledge of what the MBTA does in regards to that.
But maybe one of your colleagues does. Okay, typically. Finally, I just ask you to hear us, businesses, work with us, be transparent, as Lisa has said. We need as much information as possible in order to prepare and stay open.
So I can come meet with the Chamber of Commerce. That's not a problem.
Great. We meet the first Wednesday of every month at 8 a.m. You're welcome to our board meeting. Right, Kathy?
First Wednesday of every...
Well, we can arrange a special meeting for you.
All right. If you want to... Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Number 7 we're at?
Right now.
Can we have number 8 ready over here to go, please? Yeah.
I'm Bill Cassie. I live on Rangeley Road, which is the very first house outside the business district. And I'm truly disappointed in having spent 5 to 6 years working on with the working group, that none of the people that were on the working group from the MBTA are here. Or I haven't seen them even at the last meeting. They weren't here. It's a whole different staff. And so all of the inputs that we gave those people seem to have gone out the window. And even on your plan tonight, when you put up the goals and objectives, as has been done at every meeting, the goals never included or considered parking. And my question to you is this is a rhetorical question. I don't want to have a waste of time listening to the answer. How do you have the gall to expect the town of Winchester to provide parking for your patrons? It just, it just befuddles me completely. I don't believe that we have that responsibility, and I don't think we should. I also want to point out, you mentioned that you have 500 people getting on and 500 people getting off. That's about 2.2% of our population. This is a major, major disruption for a very few people. And I'm not saying that they're not entitled to some attention, but I am saying that when they're not entitled for us to give up 28 parking spaces permanently and for you to assume and build and have a design that works towards taking parking spaces away. It shows a lot of gall that I don't think it's really gall. I think it's a lack of concern and stupidity that you should have considered that. You should be looking at parking. That should be a primary concern. You go a mile down the street on the tracks to West Medford in the center there, and they have no station per se, 2 automatic gates that come down, and you're going to spend $50 million here on a huge station. And we had hoped that this project would take what is a grotesque looking structure and make it look better. And now you claim that you can't eliminate that angular addition with the walkway. There's a perfect opportunity to hide the bridge with that walkway, and instead you make it worse. So I'm really, truly disappointed in that situation as well. With regard to the business community and this activity and the 28 months worth of work, we currently have 6 vacancies in the downtown area, and that's not counting the office building on the corner of Main Street. I just don't know what the story is there. But the bottom line is this: it is going to hurt the local merchants, and one way or the other, that's going to end up on the back of the MBTA, and certainly not going to get favorable attention when you come looking for more space on which to expand a grotesque structure. Thank you.
Thank you. It does bear mentioning, yes, the MBTA does not own the parking. We do not collect revenue from the parking. It is owned by the town. The town sells commuter passes for our station. We heard last time the word grotesque. You know, this viaduct is what it is. It was built in the 50s. A lot of people like it. A lot of people don't. A lot of people want more stone and to keep the look, and apparently you don't. And so we have these competing interests with our butters, our ridership, and we have to balance the schedule and costs of each of these decisions that we make. We feel that we have arrived at a point with the town where we have concentrated on elevation on Laraway Road for using salvage stone, and we will meet with the merchants and see what we can sit down with them and figure out the parking. We hear you. We do care. We do care. Yeah. Number 8. Thank you. Number 9, ready to go, please?
Thank you. Vincent Dixon, 60 Lake Street, Unit N. I will just briefly mention 3 or 4 brief points here, and we'll certainly continue a conversation as I have in the past. I have mentioned, given the connection for decades in this town of Governor John Volpe, that a plaque or naming might be included in this project. And recently I delivered a 25-minute presentation requested by the Rotary to their luncheon. It's available for those who may be interested, and I will provide that to yourself.
Thank you.
The ramps is a legitimate concern because they don't function terribly well at the moment, and this could make the problem worse. It certainly should be looked at. Though the shuttle may be expensive, maybe there's some way to work together with Leahy and Winchester Hospital that has an extensive shuttle service, and also in terms of the parking with the contractors, because there are a lot of resources, and maybe they could be coordinated in some way, since Winchester and Leahy Hospital have a very active shuttle service. And it also does, I think, need to be said clearly and reinforced that the businesses of this town are valuable, fragile, and very much at risk, and they should be more directly respected in terms of their continued survival. There is a cost. It is a fragile and difficult time, and I think that's a fairly important aspect of that. So hopefully these help in terms of that, because very much this town has a living center and heart, and it's kind of facing some heart surgery here that needs to be done properly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Certainly on board in regards to Governor Volpe plaque, no problem with that. We are working with the town on finalizing the ramps. They are required for accessibility and redundancy, and they're cheaper in the long run to maintain than elevators. That's why we choose ramps. We're going to meet with the businesses. We're hearing that loud and clear. So is this number 9, sir?
Number 9, yes.
And can we have number 10 ready to go, please? Thank you. Oh,
yes, I just I wanted to thank you. I'm one of the writers on this. I want to thank you for putting back the canopies. I think that is helpful. I'm a little upset at the cavalier attitude towards closing the station for the riders. I'm not sure who's going to be in charge of plowing the bike path between Winchester Center and Wedgmere, and what priority that will have. Obviously, in the winter, that would make that route pretty inaccessible. And also, is there a planning with the project of the 185 kV line going down Bacon Street, right by the station? Are the constructions happening at the same time? And I just think that in terms of the cost, $1 million really isn't a lot. What percentage of the project is $1 million?
Yeah.
I mean, that's really not a lot.
Sure, yeah. Well, it'd be, our latest estimate, I think we're looking at, I think we're down to $39.6 million for construction. Yeah, yeah.
So, usually you have a buffer about 10% contingency on projects, extras. And what percentage of T projects have happened on time once they were started? What percentage of those?
I'll get back to you on that. No, I understand your point.
Obviously, I mean, I walk to the station, and it's a short walk, and you're tripling the walk just to get to Wedgmere.
Yeah.
And I've taken that bus before, and that's not really a viable option if I want to get to work on time.
I understand. Yeah. Yeah. So this is where we have competing constituencies, ridership, abutters. Thank you for writing the T, sir. And we understand that, yes, you will have to make changes to your commute. We're closing the station. Thank you for your service. We hope that you can find your way to Wedgmere or the bus service. If you don't, that's your choice. But we're trying to make it easier for you. And the 180-volt KV line by Eversource, they have sent us their plans, and our people are reviewing that to get them in and out before we start construction. Number 10.
Hi, I'm Erin Graham, and I just bought a house on Mystic Valley Parkway specifically so I could walk to the train station and avoid that light that keeps backing up and making me miss my train. So obviously this is very distressing for me, no longer being able to walk to the center train station. And as far as Wedgmere is concerned, I just want to make you aware that for working parents, that extra time it takes to get to Wedgmere is pretty critical, especially when you're on the 510 and you have to go pick up your children at after-school care.
Thank you. So we have one more question. Number 11, please.
I have 11. Thank you. Hall Jones. I live near the Wedgmere train station in the Lakeview area. So it sounds like there hasn't been a whole lot of decisions made as to what the parking adjustments will be made, but I would encourage just transparency along those lines. To reiterate what the gentleman said earlier, traffic's already pretty miserable around rush hour, morning and afternoon. I don't know if it's because other towns lowered their speed limits, and now Waze is sending everyone down Bacon Street.
Right.
But it's already tough, and to get in and out of our neighborhood, to get onto Bacon Street or get onto Mystic Valley. So I would just encourage transparency there. And then something else that I noted, and I'm curious about, the design shows a 9-car, the train station is being built for a 9-car train. I don't think Wedgmere Station is built for a 9-car train. So I'm curious if this will lead, at some point in time, if they're going to bring 9-car trains through, does that lead to Wedgmere needing to be expanded at some point down the road as well?
Sure. Yes, it would be. Yeah. Quite far down the road, but we are planning for 9-car consists, what we call them, in our system-wide. Does anybody maybe somebody have a comment that's not, we heard you on the merchant, we heard you on the parking, we heard you on the station closure. Is there any sort of new comment? Because we do need to wrap up. Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Peter Pulsifer. I'm with the Winchester Cultural Council. And I'm just interested mostly, well, there are a lot of things to talk about, but let me just ask you about signage. I think, let me ask you a simple question. Can we hang banners from the overpass of the new train, after you're done with your construction, will we be able to hang banners from it?
Well,
because it's a very important part of getting the news out about events in town that we hang banners.
I don't have anything against it. I'm just going to say at the time, would there be something to hang off? I'm not sure what stage of construction we're at. If it's absolutely possible, yes. Yeah, no problem.
Well, okay, that might not be the thing that we absolutely need, but if we don't get anything else, we do need it.
Sure.
So
I think it's fairly important to have good signage in the station, and I think it's very important that the station be well integrated into the life of the town, into the cultural life, into the commuting life of the town. The idea is not just to get people into town and out of town on the stations. They get off and they leave, and they get on and they go. But to integrate the station into the life of the town. I think signage would be an excellent way to do that. And the wayfinding and the directions at the station would be a great thing to have in addition to add to the life of the town. I think it would be a good thing to think about when the station is done, how will it make life better in the town of Winchester? Yeah. So, and that's I think one important thing, one way it can be.
Thank you. Yes, we have a signage plan, and that's been reviewed by the town, and we fixed any comments that they have.
Not just when the next train is coming, but
you mean wayfinding?
Situating people within the town, and informing people about things.
Okay, great. Sir, do you have
just one out-of-the-box question. Bob O'Brien, a 46-year resident, 20 years taking the commuter rail. We are blessed in Massachusetts with many different governments, but has anybody thought about the idea of approaching the MWRA to allow parking at Sandy Pond area for those of us who are willing to hoof it down to the Wedgmere station? That would seem to me to be a viable, possible opportunity. So I just don't know if anybody's thought about that.
Pardon? Shannon Beach. Yeah. That conversation, unfortunately, hasn't gotten long. I was told people about that in November. We don't have anything concrete to tell you. So just a show of hands, does anybody here currently take the train at Wedgmere? Besides, yeah. Would you drive to Shannon Beach and walk back to Wedgmere? No? No?
It's the same distance from my house. I mean, then I would just walk from my house.
So, I mean, I'm just putting that out there. That's what the closest kind of mass parking lot that is in the area. Is it still a walk? It's still a bit of a walk, so that's what we're looking at. Yeah. Anyway, so listen, we're really short on time. We've gone over as it is. Thank you, everyone, for your comments. We will be responding to these on our website, on our frequently asked questions. You're going to love the station. You're going to love what we're building. Please bear with us. Thank you for your time.